Shabbat Shalom, Israel. Shabbat Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to say all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, and Mashiach Yahweh Shai, and let's send that blessings out to all the Akim that are pushing this truth out in the four corners of the earth. I'd like to send that blessings out to all the Akawaf. I'd like to send that blessing out to all the Akim that are making pilgrimage to Zion, to Lakia, 3 times in a year, to the 3 pilgrimage feasts in which the Most has commanded all the men of Israel to appear before him. And I'd also like to send that blessings out to all the Akawaf that are raising up the children in the way of the Most High, so that when they go older, they do not depart from the way of the Most High, right? And before we get into the topic for today, which is current events, we're going to read the first 3 scriptures that we always read when we begin to talk about the gospel of the kingdom, because these three scriptures talk about the 3 pilgrimage feasts, and the 3 pilgrimage feasts are a part of our customs, right? And if we're going to get back to them, then we need to start keeping those commandments, right, and rehearsing the righteous acts, right? Because that's the only way to get there is by doing, right? And that's why when we did the live, the ones to keep and do the commandments, it tells us to do the commandments, right? To do them, right? So let's read Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 16. You're muted.
So you're muted. Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 16. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty.
Right, so 3 times in a year, all the men of Israel are meant to appear before the Most High. 3 times, that's in the feast of unleavened bread, in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, right? And you're not meant to appear before the Most High empty, right? And it's 3 feasts, 3 particular feasts, right? Because with the Most High, what you have to understand is that the Most High is very particular. Is very, very, very particular. So he'll pick a specific place. He'll tell you specifically what you have to do, right? Everything specific, and you can see that even in terminology of how he determines his people, because he said that we're holy and set apart people and peculiar. Isn't that separate, or isn't that different? Right? Isn't that very specific? Very, very specific. Right? Because that's how he wants his people. He wants his people specific. It's the same thing. Right? He wants them holy, he wants them set apart, he wants them to be different. So if you're doing everything everybody else is doing, then you're not being different, you're being the same as. And that's why the scripture says to abstain from all evil appearances. Abstain from all evil appearance, because that's what we weren't doing. That's why the scripture says that when we went amongst the nations, we his name, because we recorded ourselves as children of God, but we're doing all manner of wickedness. Do all manner of wickedness. So we weren't being specific, we weren't being holy, we weren't being different, right? We weren't abstaining from all evil appearance. We were keeping all evil appearance. That's what we were doing, right? And this is part of us coming back to him and being holy and abstaining from evil appearances, because when we're doing this, we're doing righteousness, because righteousness is keeping his commandments, and this is commanded of all the men of Israel. And again, like we always say, if you can't make it, you can't make it because of certain reasons, depending on whatever the reasons are, right? If you're praying to the Most High to say, let me go there, right? Then, the Most High will see with you. The Most High will make a way for you to go there.
Can't.
Right? He'll make a way for you to go there. Right? So you just have to, and if you want to go, and for some reason you can't make it, there's nothing stopping you from talking about it or from teaching people about it. Because at least then you're putting your work into that. At least you're helping, because you might speak to somebody that you don't know. He might they might have some sway somewhere, or they might have funds to build the house of the Most High. They might have a trade where they know how to help build the house of the Most High. You don't know that, but by putting the word out there and by telling people, right, you'll bring this about. Right, and it's the same way when you preach the gospel entirely, right? Because that's part of the gospel. But when you preach the gospel entirely, right, when you're doing that, right, you're getting people on board, and when you get people on board, you don't know who you're getting on board. It might be a person that is going to do something for the Most High, and because you've told them or you've given them the understanding, right, and then they wake up, they might go and do a work that you didn't know they were going to do, but because the Most High used you to wake them up, they've gone and done that work. Right, they've gone and done that work, but you won't know that unless you do that. You won't know that unless you do that. And remember, if it does happen, if you tell somebody and then they go on to do a good work for the Most High, then you'll be like, wow, the Most High used me to bring that about. And it's a good thing to do things for the Most High, to bring things about. Right? Because like the scripture says, like our reward is in heaven. Right? That's where our reward is. Right? We're meant to be storing up our riches in heaven. Because this kingdom that's here now isn't going to be here forever. It's going to be here for a time. And once the time period is done, then we're not going to be here anymore. Or this isn't going to be here anymore. Right? And a new kingdom's coming in. And in that kingdom, right, it's going to be righteous currency. Or what my acolytes like to say, kingdom currency. Right? Kingdom currency, because that's what you're going to be building up. You're going to be building up kingdom currency, building up your riches in heaven. Because when you go in there, when you go into the kingdom of heaven, or when the kingdom of heaven comes in, then you'll have a good place there. You'll have a good place there. It'll be good for you.
And a lot of these so-called Negroes who are rich here are going to be broke in the kingdom because they didn't try and score up no kingdom currency. They were more worried about the currency here in this time and in this generation. So, right. So let's go on to the other scriptures now, right? So that was Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 16. Next, we are going to go to Exodus chapter 23, and we're going to read from verse 14. There's chapter 23 and read it from verse 14. And it reads, 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest,
feast of unleavened bread.
And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field. 3 times in the year all thy males shall appear before the Lord God.
Right, so 3 times in the year it tells you all the men of Israel are meant to appear before the Most High. Right, that's in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Weeks, right, which says the Feast of Harvest, but it's talking about the wheat harvest, because that's when first fruits happens. Not first fruits, that's when Feast of Weeks happens, during the wheat harvest, right? First fruits is at the beginning of the wheat harvest, because that's when the first fruits come up. But then during the wheat harvest, that's when the Feast of Weeks happens, because that's when you start bringing leaven back into the land through the wheat harvest, right? So the first fruits of thy labors, which are sown in the field, and the Feast of Ingathering. So again, Feast of Ingathering is just another name for tabernacles, right? The Feast of Ingathering is just another name for tabernacles. So when you're reading that, no one understands that that's talking about the Feast of Tabernacles. So again, it says the exact same 3 feasts. It says the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Tabernacles, right? And that hasn't changed, right? So let's have a look now at the third scripture that we always go to, right? And that is in Exodus again, but it's in chapter 34 to look here. In chapter 34, right? So when we go to chapter 34, we're going to scroll down to verse 23. Right, and if you want to know what the 3 feasts, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? Verse 22, here weeks, right? And then it says, and the Feast of Ingathering, right? So again, it says the exact same 3 feasts, right? But the reason why we focus on verse 23 and verse 24 is because it tells you what the Most High is going to do when we're keeping these three feasts, right? So read that for me.
From verse 23. Thrice in the year shall all your men children appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before thee, and enlarge thy borders. Neither shall any man desire thy land, when thou shalt go up to appear before the Lord thy God thrice in the year. You muted, Ak? You muted.
Sorry. So again, we can see that the scripture says that 3 times in a year, all the men of Israel are meant to appear before the Most High, right? 3 times. So that's categorically what it says, right? And if you read up, like I said, it says unleavened bread, Feast of Weeks, and Feast of Tabernacles. That doesn't change, right? But it starts to tell us about what the Most High is going to do when we're keeping it. So it says He will cast out the nations before us, and no man's going to desire our land, and He's going to enlarge our borders, meaning we're going to be greater than we were when we first went in, when our fathers went in there, right? And it says that's what's going to happen when we go up to keep these feasts 3 times in a year. So you see how important this is for us, for our return, or the kingdom of heaven coming in. It's important because this is a part of it. This is a part of it, and this is what we have to get towards, right? We have to get towards keeping the commandments of the Most High, and this is part of them, right? And saying we're Israelites and not even going to the land, or not even venturing out to the land, is a disservice to yourself. It's a disservice to the Most High first and foremost, but it's a disservice to yourself. Why? Because that's your home. That's your home, and you should want to visit your home. You should want to visit the place where eventually your people are going to be back there, right? And we're going to be living there, and we're going to be serving the Most High there. So you should want to visit it. And the reason why you should want to visit it is because it's going to give you more understanding and more wisdom. Because when you go there, you'll see why people did certain things, where people did certain things, and it will start to bring the history to life. Because without it, all it is a recount of history. But when you start to see the places, even though it was just a recount of history, even though when you read it, it was a recount of history, you start to picture things, or you start to get more of an understanding as to why things happened that way, or why things went that way. Right? And it starts to bring things to life to you, like actually to life. Like, so you know and understand that these things that happened actually did happen. Right? Actually did happen. Right? It will help with your faith, man. And faith isn't just believing in something that doesn't exist. Faith is knowing something, or understanding something. It's like I have faith that the sun's gonna come up tomorrow, because I know it's gonna come up tomorrow, so I can have faith in the sun, because it's gonna come up tomorrow. So I know that faith is to know. So when you say you have faith in God, it means you know God. But what does the scripture say about knowing God? It says, "He that saith he knoweth the Father, or know of God, and keeps not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him." Right? So in order for you to know the Creator, in order for you to have faith in the Creator, means you have to keep his commandments. Right? It means you have to keep his commandments, and this is part of those things. Right? So we always go through this every week, right? Because it's an important part of our culture, and we're trying to get our people back to it. Right? But it's important. Let's get back to our culture, and let's get back to our way of life, and start to keep these 3 feasts, right? When you can. Right? When you can. And if you can't, teach people about them, because nothing's stopping you from moving your mouth and teaching people about it. Right? It's important. It's actually very, very, very important. Right? It's important, especially if you've got understanding, you've got knowledge, and you're not telling nobody. Like that's no good to anybody. It might be good to you, but it only helps you then. How are you helping anybody else? Because then you're just keeping it to yourself.
Calm. It's burying your talent, isn't it?
What was that, Salakia?
It's burying your talent.
Yeah, burying your talent, right? Because the Most High is giving you understanding, He's giving you wisdom. So use it. Use the wisdom. Because at the end of the day, like, he ain't just gonna give wisdom to anybody. So if he's giving it to you, he's giving it to you for a reason. He's giving it to you for a reason. So use it wisely. Use it wisely. And teach people and bring them to understanding too, so that they know who they are and they know where they need to go and they know what they need to keep. Right? They know what they need to keep. So let's get into our topic for today, right? Which is current events, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the natural or unnatural disasters, as we like to say. First, we're going to go through them. And remember, again, when I show these videos, right, you can go and have a look at the videos, because the YouTube page is the same pretty much for these videos, particular videos, because this is where I go to have a look to see what's going on around the world, right? So it's called climate change. You can have a look at it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Have a watch of it and understand that these things all happened within a week. Right? All these things happen within a week. So the fact that they happen within a week, right, is telling you that the times are coming, right? He's telling you you're in the end times, and that the day of the Most High is upon us. It's near. It's very, very near. And every minute, every hour, every day, we're getting closer. Right? We're getting closer. But it's telling you how close it is. So let's bring that up now.
Flooding in the municipality of Padre Las Casas, Osua province. After heavy rains, Dominican Republic. Large hail in Kovrov, Vladimir region, Russia. Heavy downpour hit the Turkish capital. Streets and even lower floors of buildings in Ankara are flooded, Turkey. Floods damage Legain, Haiti. Large accumulation of hail yesterday in Ioannina, Greece. Flooding in Bustelo, Chaves municipality, Portugal. Heavy rains flooded the city of Lyon, France. Heavy rains in Panama City, capital of the Republic of Panama in Central America. Flooding in Esmeraldas province after the rains. People had to take shelter on rooftops as water flooded their homes. Ecuador. Dust storm in different parts of Rajasthan state, India. A tornado near the city of Heilongjiang, China. Massive flooding after heavy rains in Funchal, Madeira. Italia volcano. Soccer eruption Japan. Severe flooding after heavy rains in Tolna. This is one of the largest wildfires raging in #Canada. The Donny Creek Fire, British Columbia. It has burned more than 2,400 square kilometers, making it one of the largest recorded in the history of the province. Unexpected heavy rains and strong winds hit Vladivostok, causing severe flooding throughout the city. Stormy weather began in the afternoon of June 8, 2023, with rainfall peaking on the morning of June 9 and rain forecast continue until Saturday. Russia. Mayon Volcano, Philippines 08JUNE 2023. Mayon volcano hazard level has been upgraded to level 3 due to an increase in its activity. Extrusive activity intensified in the area of the lava dome at the summit, which led to the emergence of several pyroclastic flows. One of the strongest convective storms of the season, India. severe flooding after heavy rains in Ramada and Haida areas, Yemen.
I used
So like here, so you can see just from that video alone, right? You can see that there's a lot of stuff going on around the world, a lot of stuff, right? And it's happening all over. And if you're not looking, you're not going to see that. So to you, it's going to be like, oh, one thing's happening here, one thing's happening there, because it don't happen in quick succession in one place, right? It's happening all across the world. Look how many floods there were. Look how many hailstorms there were. Right? Look how many volcanoes are erupting. Right? Volcanoes that they didn't think were as active as they are. Right? And you see, all these things take place, right? All these things are taking place because the Most High is making them take place. They're taking place because the Most High is making them take place, right? And let's go to Matthew 24, right? Matthew chapter 24, and we are going to read from verse 3, right? Because this is when the disciples asked him, right? This is when the disciples asked him, what's going to be the coming of, what's going to be the sign of his coming, right? And the end of the world, right? So read it for me.
Reading from verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
Right? So you're going to see of here and rumors of wars. Right? You're going to hear of rumors of, you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. And that's what's happening, but that's happened over generations, that's happened over millennia, right? That these things have taken place, right? But he says that don't be troubled because then they need to come to pass, right? But the end isn't going to come because you're hearing of rumors of wars, but this is a sign, right? So when this is happening with other things, coupled with other things, you know it's time, right? Verse 7.
For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places.
Right? So he's saying nation's going to rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, right? There's going to be famines, pestilences, illnesses, right? Anything you can think of, man. There's going to be a load of stuff happening, right? Earthquakes in diverse places all over the earth, right? And that's what's happening. All these are happening all over the earth, right? And then it says, verse 8, it says, all these are the beginning of sorrows, right? So it's just the beginning of that. But these things are just going to get slowly and progressively more and more worse. Slowly and progressively, and over time, it's going to build up until it gets to the point where Messiah comes. When Messiah comes, right? And all these things happen, and that's just the beginning, right? And all these things are happening on the earth. So we're having wars, right? We've got kingdom rising against kingdom, we've got famines, we've got pestilences, we've got earthquakes. All of those things are happening, right? And let's quickly jump to Ezra chapter 9, 2 Ezra chapter 9, and read from verse 1.
He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently within itself, and when thou seest part of the signs pass, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand. Then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made.
So he says that you got to measure the time diligently. Measure it. Because when you see the things which he's told us before, like all the signs he's told us about, right, then you're going to know and understand that it's the time when the Most High is going to begin to visit the earth. Right? So when the Messiah was talking, remember the Messiah came, he said, I haven't come to speak my own words. I can't speak the words of the Father that sent me. Right? I can't speak the words of the words of my Father. Right? So the signs that the Most High is telling us from his son, right, is still his words. Right? So he's saying when you hear the words which I've been telling you from since the beginning, right, then you're gonna know, hang on a second, he told me about these things. These were like warnings, right? It's coming up to that point now. It's seeming a lot like all these prophecies are coming to pass, right? It's there to wake you up, to get you to the point where you're like, okay, this is happening now, so I need to prepare myself. Right, I need to prepare myself because Most High is coming. Right, it's all a sign. Right, and then you're gonna understand. So when you see him, you're gonna say, "Oh, Messiah spoke of those things. That means the Most High is gonna visit the earth now." Right, it's here. Right, and you have to be ready, man, because Messiah told you prophecies. And even this scripture tells you prophecies. Right, read verse 3.
Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou
Right.
well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning.
Right, so then you're gonna understand that the Most High spoke of these things before we were even born, before we were even on the earth. He spoke of those things even from the beginning. Right, even from the beginning, because contrary to popular belief, this kingdom has an end. Right, read verse 5.
For like as all that is made in the world have a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest.
Right, and the end is manifest, because that just means the end is coming to pass. The end is coming to fruition. Right, it's at the point where the end is coming. Right, because the end of this kingdom is the beginning of the next. But the next kingdom is forever. The next kingdom is forever. Right, it's going to be forever. Right, but this kingdom is coming to its end, and we can see that through all of those things that are happening. All right. So if you want to have a look at those things, because there's loads of things happening every week. So if you go onto that page, right, it will take you through a lot of them. Right, it will take you through a lot of them. Right. What I think I'll do is I will put that in the. I'll put that in the video. I'll put the video in the comments. Right. If you want to go watch that video again, it's there. If you want to share it, it's there. Also, if you want to go and check the other videos out on that page, it's there for you to see. Right, so it's on there now. Right, so now we're gonna go on to some more topics, right, or some more articles. So I'm gonna bring that up on the screen. Okay, it says here that the WHO are gonna use listening surveillance systems. So like, yeah, say that
I
again.
said, yeah, no, the banner, you know, the one that says about free use.
Say that again.
I said, put up the banner, that free use banner, before you go into the articles and stuff, because obviously they monitor it, and as soon as you mention certain names.
Okay, so this is basically just for this is just for critique,
Criticism.
basically, as well.
Mhm.
Just it's just
This
for
is not
critique.
art.
So we're just critiquing it, right? It's not our opinion, right?
Mhm.
This is just critique, right? But it's out there. So this is article that's out there, right? And this is not us saying this. This is somebody else saying this, but we are critiquing it, right?
This video can't
says,
be used to say that this is our beliefs. This isn't our beliefs. This is someone else's
yeah.
beliefs
So
that we're
yeah.
using this.
Mhm. So it just says here, WHO to use listening surveillance systems to monitor Americans for speech on this word that they use here a lot. So you're using this word a lot now. This is to keep people from talking on things that they don't want you to talk about. So they'll class certain things as that, but when it comes down to it, right, some of the majority of the time, those have been reversed. It's like even when you had like certain checkers, right, when they were checking certain things about facts and stuff like that, those checkers, they those checkers, they not rescinded. They rescinded their statements, but they like reversed it or did a whole like U-turn, a whole U-turn on what they were saying that they were wrong, and that whatever anybody else was saying was right. Right. So I'm just gonna read a bit of this article, right? So it says Congress launches an investigation into this organization here, right? After details emerged of the United Nations health body's disturbing Orwellian plan to combat so-called, the word right there, right? So, because the United Nations is already, the United Nations would have, the WHO, the same people are together because that's their main body and whatsoever. But they're fighting against this. They're saying they're fighting against that, but they're spying on people basically, right? And this whole spying thing, or like listening and monitoring people and whatsoever, is to watch what people are saying and what people are doing. So if you go against what they're saying, then they can stop you from saying it. They can stop you from saying it. Right? And there's been times, and the thing is, there's been times where they've got things wrong. There's times where they've got things wrong. So if they've got things wrong and they're telling people that what they're saying is wrong, and they take that away, then effectively they are killing people. Which, when it comes to the New World Order or the Great Reset and stuff like that, or the things that they're trying to push, when it comes to that, right, that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do, because even on the what was it called again? The Georgia Guidestones. It had on there the top commandment that they had in there, because it had 10 commandments of their own on there, and one of them was to keep the world population under 500 million. Right, 500 million. That means they want to kill 7.5 billion people, because that's the only way to do that. Logically, that's the only way to do that. Right, because you've got 8 billion people on the earth now, or near enough 8 billion. But at the end of the day, like, in order for you to reach 5 billion, 500 million, you have to kill 7.5 billion people. So it's funny how the past few years there's been things that have caused mass fatalities. Right, there's been things that have caused mass fatalities. So it's funny how all of a sudden these things are happening. It's funny how they're happening, because at the end of the day, like, these things haven't happened in history. So what would make these things happen now? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Right? That's the question you have to ask yourself. So I'm gonna put this this article in the chat. Right? If you want to have a look at it in your spare time, you can, and whatsoever. I'm just putting this out there to show people that they are surveilling people, they are looking at people, they're looking at what you're saying, what you're doing, and whatsoever. And this is all part of a new world order. It's all a part of being one government. One government, one religion, one everything, and that's why they're pushing it in that direction. That's why you even have the Abrahamic house, because they're trying to merge 3 religions into one. Even though, if you go historically, those 3 religions were made by one religion. Pretty much. Well, they weren't three religions weren't made by one, but 2 of them were made by one, and the other one was people trying to pretend to be us. Right, people trying to pretend to be us, but those three religions are we're trying to become one and calling them Abrahamic faiths, right? But it's all a part of them trying to bring this about, right? It's all about them trying to bring this about. And this is one of the things that they're doing, right? So have a look at that when you get a chance to, because it's there for you to do that, right? So the next article we are going to go to is another article talking about a very, very similar thing, right? But this time it's talking about the Food Administration in America, right? So it says here that in a recent announcement, right, the Food Administration has revealed the launch of a web page designed to address and curtail what it says is the spread of the word here, because I know they flagged the word, you see, or the spread of. So what I'll say lies, right? Is the spread of lies, right, related to health and medical topics online. The initiative, known as the Rumor Control page, invites users to report instances of lies on the internet, particularly on social media platforms. So they're basically teaching people to snitch, right? Teaching people to snitch, and people were doing that during the thing that happened a couple of years ago, right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you must be hiding under a wrap, because it happened all over the world, and there was things happening all over the world, right, about it. So they're getting people to snitch on people now, right? And that's what they were doing back then. So people probably will be snitching on people if they speak about, like, you know, because eventually it will get to a point where it's not just talking. They're not going to be saying, "Oh, people are lying about these particular things that they're talking about now." It'll be about everything. Anything they say or they'll tell you isn't true, right? Anything they tell you isn't true, or anything you put out there that they're trying to keep under wraps, they'll say it's a lie. They'll say it's a lie, and they'll brand it with that word there. They'll brand it with this word right here, and they'll bring it up big, massive, right? They're gonna brand it this right here and call it a lie. When what they're saying is the lie, and what they're saying is a lie. And it's funny how now the Food Administration is doing this, right? Because there's a lot of information coming out about food and stuff like that as well, about what they're doing with it, about GMOs, about all those type of things, right? And it's funny how now they're doing that right now when all this stuff's coming out, because eventually what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to come down on that. They're going to want to come down on that, right? And they're trying to get people to snitch on people. Trying to get people to snitch on people, right? So I'm just going to put that in the chat as well. So I'm going to go on to the next article. So look here. So here it says the EU wants all citizens to have a digital ID by 2030. So I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was a campaign or like a kind of like thing that they were pushing called ID 2020 at the end of last decade, right? And they were basically saying that they wanted everybody to have a digital ID by 2030, right? So now the EU is really trying to push for that, right? So it says here the digital ID rollout is accelerating with little attention and not enough pushback. The European Commission has set aside 46 million, about 49 million, for the controversial European digital identity wallet, an upcoming smartphone app that will allow citizens of all 25 member states of the EU to store and to share a digital ID, The money will be invested in pilot programs, right? It says the wallet could be used for presenting travel credentials, registering a SIM card, opening a bank account, and accessing services like social benefits, right? So yeah, they're trying to push this digital ID stuff and whatsoever. They're trying to push it out there. Again, this is part of what they want to bring in, which is like the NWO and stuff like that. So this will be a part of it as well, and that's why they tried to start pushing this a couple of years ago, right? They started pushing this a few years ago, right, when they said that people couldn't travel and stuff like that. So it was to desensitize people to the idea of a digital wallet and to kind of get people into the digital mind frame. And that's why even with like money, they want to become completely cashless society. So that's why contactless became a big thing as well, because it's to get people to get used to it, because that's what they want. They want you to get used to it, so that when they say that we're a cashless society now, there's not an uproar, right? There's not an uproar. So this is another good idea to have a read up on, because this is what they're getting ready to push on the earth, right? They're getting ready to push that on the earth, and eventually you probably won't be able to travel without it. Who knows? We know, but who knows? Right? Because even in because when I was talking to the elder, and we know that like in China and stuff like that, you can't really say much without, or there's certain things you can't say without the government like banning you, or they've got like a social credit score system and stuff like that. So out there, like you do something that they don't like, then they'll bring your social credit score down. And it was like if no one's ever watched it, Black Mirror, there was the episode where it was like some people had like social credit scores and whatever, and then this lady was going to like fine dining events and stuff like that. But over time, because her social score went down, people didn't want to be with her anymore or be around her anymore, or she couldn't go to events and stuff like that. And even in China, there was a guy, I think he did MMA as well, and like because he couldn't, because he did, I can't remember what he did, but apparently he did something, and basically because his social score went down and whatever, they wouldn't allow him to go on a train or fly or anything like that. They wouldn't allow him to do that. So basically, like they have full control over people's lives there. So eventually, like if it was possible for them, that's what I reckon they'll be doing. That's what I reckon they'll be doing, right? Having full control over people's lives, and people are willing to give it up because over time that's been proven. That's been proven because everyone's giving a little bit of their freedom up every time something's happened. Right? Every time something's happened, it's going to get to a point where you're pretty much going to give your life away. Give your life away, because the more and more you give, they never give it back. They'll never give it back. They'll never give it back, because these countries have been in a state of like emergency for how long and whatsoever, and they've never taken away the measures they put in place for those emergency events. So what's that telling you? Every time there's an emergency event, someone's going to come into place that's going to take a bit more of your freedom away. Like cameras everywhere now, and they say that it's for safety, but your privacy is gone away, because you can't walk down the street now without them knowing where you are or what you're doing. And then they've even got because even now they've got like, because you got AI now and stuff like that, so they can do facial recognition easily. So there's nothing stopping them from having facial recognition in those cameras and knowing who exactly you are and where you come from and everything like that. There's actually nothing stopping them from doing that. Right? Nothing stopping them from doing that. And that's what this is. This is just to get them to have like a bit more control over you, a bit more control over your life and stuff like that. Because even with like, imagine like cashless society in reality, like what can you do in a cashless society? What can they do in a cashless society? Right? If it's all digital, right? That means you have less control over your money. You give them more control over your money and you have less control. Because let's say that you do something that they don't like, then if you don't have cash that you had separately, or you can't use cash anymore, right? And they stop you from using your card because you've done something that they didn't like, then what? Then you can't do anything. You can't buy and sell and stuff like that. And that's why you know that it's like a prelude to when the mark of the beast comes. Because when the mark of the beast comes, right, we know that when the mark of the beast comes, we know that we're not going to be able to buy and sell without taking it. So how are they going to bring that in? They're going to be trying to implement something like this. They're going to be trying to implement something like this. So that way, if you don't have what they want you to have, right? If you don't give them control over you, then you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do anything. So I'm gonna put that in the chat as well. So give me a moment. Oh, I've already done that. I've already put it in there. So like, yeah. So let's go on to the next article then. Right. So this is on the news page, the Defender Children's Health Defense news and views. Right. So it says here, military's expanded role in 5G could lead to mass data collection, tracking, and monitoring of US citizens. Right. It says the US military's chief information officer and former CIA deputy director John Sherman said his office will assume control of all 5G related activities in the US military and expand the military's 5G pilot programs, a move critics said could lead to increased surveillance of US citizens. And it's like we said before, like when it comes to like 5G, in reality, no normal person needs 5G. No normal person needs 5G. Because even 4G, because remember, like I remember someone said to me that when we message people now, what's it called? It's called instant messaging.
Mhm.
So now on 4G, you can get messages instantly. It's not like you're waiting for the message to come through. You get them instantly, meaning the internet's fast enough to send instant messages. Right? It's fast enough to send instant messages. So if you've got that fast internet, what do you need 5G for? You don't need it because it's just something, it's extra. Because there's nothing that you're gonna need to use it for, because it ran the internet that we have now runs fine when, like, say somebody's like, I don't know, streaming videos, right? Streaming videos, if someone's playing music right from the internet, right? If someone's playing a game on the internet, right? Nobody needs 5G for that. So what do they need 5G for? Right? What do they need 5G for? Because it's that powerful. What would they need it for? And that's the question you got to ask yourself. That's the question you got to ask yourself, because now the military is using it. What are they using it for? Right? Because there's a lot of war going on. So you have to question to yourself, why are they using it, or why have they been given like reign over the reign over 5G and stuff like that? And then there was that documentary that spoke about it before, right? That spoke about it before and said that basically that 5G, right, can literally be used in terms of making people not want to be in a certain area, right, and stuff like that. But it can be used in different ways, basically. But because it's so new as well, they don't know the adverse effects that it can have on people. Because when it comes to 4G, remember 4G is relatively new, right? 4G is relatively new. That came out like 2011 to the public, so that was everywhere then. Right, and that's relatively new. And remember, when you're dealing with like mobile networks and stuff like that, you're dealing with waves emitting from your phone and waves emitting from those things. So what's happening inside our bodies, or what's happening when those waves are hitting our bodies, right? And because it's so new, you don't know what's happening. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what the adverse effects could be of us using those things. right? Of us using those things, right? But this is what I'm saying. Why would they need something so powerful? Why would they need something so powerful? Because I'm sure when it came out, they were saying it was 10 times faster than 4G. 10 times faster. What normal person needs that? Normal day-to-day people don't need that. But now, all of a sudden, the military is getting involved in it, right? And it says here that the military CIO and former CIA deputy, right, said that his office is going to have control over all 5G activities, right? So it's showing you that they want to use it, but what do they want to use it for? That's the question you got to ask yourself. That's the question you got to ask yourself, because a lot of the time, what the military do, or what a military there for, to go to war. And remember, they want to they've got those AI dogs or robotic dogs. They've got that I forgot what the thing is called, something dynamics, right? But they do robots and stuff and whatever. In order for them to control them from far away, remotely, they're gonna need a good internet connection, and they could use 5G for that. They could very well do that, right? And obviously, they're gonna keep it. They're gonna try to keep it as quiet as possible, right? Because it says here, Sherman also wants to expand the military's use of 5G, but he did not say exactly what that expansion may look like, because they don't want to keep that. They want to keep that quiet. They want to keep that quiet, and they'll say it's because they don't want the enemy to know about it. But it's not just that they don't want the enemy to know about it; they don't want you to know about it either. Don't want you to know about it either. But this is what they're using that for, right? So it's telling you why they brought 5G out, because we don't need 5G. We actually do not need it. Like there's no necessity for it. You can use it, but there's not like any real need for it. Not now. There's nothing that big or nothing that demanding, like internet wise, that needs that power or that connection. Right, not at the moment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that in the comment section as well. So it just says here as well, BRICS bloc is adding members, planning new currency to challenge US dollar, right? So literally you can see that BRICS is growing now, right? So it says here, the BRICS bloc of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa is expanding as its members grow in economic and political influence, right? So together, the 5 BRICS members represent more than 40% of the global population, right? So it's 40% of the population that BRICS represent, right? And it says, and their share of the world economy, when measured in purchasing power parity, is larger than that of the G7, right? So the purchasing power of these like nations coming together is good for them, right? But you can see that like you got the different like societies or different like groups. So you got like the United Nations, you got the European Union, you got BRICS and stuff like that. So all these things, or NATO, right? So you got these different things, and they're coming together, and they're like, remember, you got wars going on. So in war, those people will be allies because they're working together, right? So let's say that something did break out in terms of like a world war, in terms of after like the whole because of the whole Ukraine and Russia scenario and whatsoever, like you'd have allies for different sides and whatever. So obviously NATO would have their allies, and then you'd have Russia would have, or BRICS would have their allies, right? So Russia would have their allies, and America would have their allies. So America would have NATO allies, and Russia would have BRICS allies. right? And it's not just remember, like it says that it's the BRICS is expanding, right? So they're actually looking to do like to make their own currency, like a global currency, right? That they can trade with instead of the US dollar, right? So it says here the foreign ministers of the BRICS states met in South Africa on June 1st and 2nd. There they discussed a series of issues, including plans to create a new global reserve currency to challenge the dominance of the US dollar, right? So if they do this, then the US dollar will be on its way out, and that's because America's in a massive debt, massive debt. So like, there's no way they can save. There's no way they can save that currency if this goes through, right? Because at the moment, like even here, like even in England, like our currency isn't even backed by gold, right? It's not even backed by gold. So a lot of these currencies aren't backed by gold, but this would be backed, right? This is a global reserve currency, right? So it will be backed by something. Right, it will be backed, but they're trying to bring out their own currency now. So you can see that these people are forming, right? So it says also present at the meeting in South Africa was a group of top diplomats from countries described as friends of BRICS. So remember, like I said, they got allies. Even BRICS have allies. So it says Egypt, Iran, Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, right? And it says more than 20 countries have expressed interest in joining BRICS. At least 13 nations have formally applied, right? So it says here, prospective future members include Algeria, Argentina, Bahrain, Belarus, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the UAE, right? So all these different countries are putting applications in to get into the BRICS, right? To get into BRICS. So imagine how much influence the BRICS could get if they have all of those in there, right? And if a war breaks out, then they'll have all these countries as allies in that war as well, right? In that war as well. And the Most High did say that He's going to bring all of them down. He's calling all nations down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. So this war is going to involve, right, majority of these nations, right? Or they're going to have some part in it because the Most High is calling all these nations down, right? Calls all the nations, right? Calling them to war down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of decision, right? But you can see they're all mounting up for war. They're all mounting up for all of these things, right? Mounting up for it. So you know that what's so like they're mounting up for war. So you know that they're all preparing for that, and they're all trying to get their like all their groups together, right? And that's why even when it came to NATO, right? Even when it came to NATO tried to get Ukraine. NATO tried to get Ukraine, and because NATO tried to get Ukraine, that's why Russia decided to intervene, because they were like, "Well, you said you wasn't gonna come towards the West and get more countries on the West, but ever since that treaty was made, all they've done is slowly but surely edged towards them, gaining more and more countries to join, or getting more and more countries to join them, right?" And when they started doing it in Russia's back garden, they were like, "No, we're not allowing that to happen." So then this is why this is taking place now, right? This is why this is taking place. So I'm going to bring up the last article for today, right? So look here. So it says here, Android update to introduce digital ID wallet. So a minute ago, we just were speaking about having like a digital ID and stuff like that. And this is a part of it again. So it says the controversial tech is rolling out this summer, right? So it says Google Wallet, the Android version of the wallet apps on iPhones, has started supporting digital IDs and driver's licenses. So imagine you'll have all your stuff on your or you have all your stuff on your phone, so your driver's license, your ID, any form of ID, anything like that, your credit cards, debit cards, anything you can think of, you'll have on that device. And this is again is desensitization for the mark, because when they start bringing out the stuff for like the mark and whatever, like you'll be able to buy and sell with the mark. You'll have all your medical information on the mark. You'll have all of those things, right? All on this chip, all on the one chip, right? And that's what they're gonna try to bring out for people, right? And they're already starting to bring the chip out. I know they do it in is it Sweden? Sweden, they do it, right? And you can just swipe your hand and you get into a building, right? Even Amazon were doing like a hand payment method at one point, trying that as well. So that's again is pushing this whole desensitization towards these tech and stuff like that. And I don't know if anybody's heard as well that Elon Musk now is able to trial AI on humans. Right, I'll put in the that brain chip into humans and whatever, he's able to try it now. So that's what he's out here doing. But we already know that they were working on this from a long time ago, or that they've tested it on people before anyway, because they don't do things without testing it first anyway. Right, and the reason why they're bringing it out now is so that people think that, oh, they're just testing it out now, but really, like, behind closed doors, they've been testing this out for ages, for a long period of time. Right, for a long period of time. But you can see that Google's heavily involved in this whole digital ID thing. So don't be surprised if they're out here pushing microchips and stuff like that in the future. Right, because it doesn't matter who their front man is. Right, at some point, right, everybody, all these big companies will be involved. Right, so it says here, Google Wallet, the Android version of the Wallet app on iPhones, has started supporting digital IDs and driver's licenses. The company said the feature will begin rolling out this month, supporting the growing global push to get citizens to adopt digital ID measures. So you see, it's about a global push to get everybody to have a digital ID. And you see, they want this done by 2030. So imagine now, yeah, it's 2023, right? And they're already pushing it heavily. So imagine what it's going to be like in the next few years. Imagine what it's going to be like in the next few years, because they want everybody to have some form of digital ID. You don't want people to have paper ID. But again, it's about control. Like, do you think about it like this? The less, the more they get us onto digital platforms, or to get us to only be digital, is the less control we have over our things, over our stuff. Like with money, like if you don't have cash and they're not allowing you to use your card, how are you going to buy and sell? Right? If they don't want you to go nowhere, or they don't want you to drive and stuff like that, or if they decide that they don't want you to drive, they can take away your driving license, because your driving license is digital now. It's digital now, so they could get somebody to stop you, or police have to stop you in the road and whatsoever, revoke your driving license or whatever. But you have a driving license, but they've taken it. Right, but they have more control over you, right, and that's not what you want, right? And people are slowly but surely just allowing them to take a bit more freedom from them every day, right? A bit more freedom from them, and it's a scary prospect, because you shouldn't want people to have control over that, or over you, right? The only being that should have control over you is the Father, is the Creator, right? Is the Creator, and that's it. Right, so that's the last article for today. I am going to put that in the chat as well. So if you want to read that in your own time, you can do that. But what I'm going to do is now I'm going to pass it over to my Ak, who's going to go through the Hebrew word of the day.
Shalom, shalom. Welcome again to this segment, the Hebrew word study of the stream of the day, however you want to say it, where we pick one word and we break it down and try to come up with the water. No, Salakia. Apologies. We try to come up with a definition that breaks down the word better than just saying the meaning that we would understand it as today. So the word sakal means to consider. They might use it to mean to be prudent. It means you're diligent when you do something, and it means to be successful in teaching also. So this word's very important, and especially with the act going into making sure that you're clued up and watching and praying and seeing what's going on. If you're sakal about what's going on and making sure you're aware of what's going on in the world, you'll be successful, because you can give people updates, you can give people news, you can give people the current events that's going on. So sakal to me is a very important word, and it's made up of the sheen, the kaf, and the lamed, some of which you've come across before. I don't know if we've done a word with the cat in it, the kaf, yet, so maybe this is a bit different. So we're going to go through and break it down. So the word is sakal. People who are apt or studied in Lashawan Kadash, which is just means holy tongue, but it's a Hebrew Israelite ability or want to go back to ancient Hebrew, pictograph Hebrew. So basically what happens is they pronounce the words based on their phonetic properties rather than S or L, so to speak. They'll say sa, la, ma. So in the Lashwan Kadash, this word would be said shakala, or shakar. So that's the word that we're going in today, to consider, to be prudent. And it's made up, like I said, of the sheen, the kaf, and the lamed. So now we're going to break it down. Can you make it bigger? Again, yeah. And we're going to go into it. So like I said, we've got the sheen first, which makes the phonetic sound of a sha. I've seen it being used as a sa before, but there's other letters that make that sound. So this would correctly be sha. That's why it comes from the word sheen. And the sheen, if you look at the pictograph, is two front teeth. It's meant to be like it looks like a molar, actually, more like on the pictograph. And when you jump to the paleo, which is slightly more new language, you can see that it still looks like two front teeth. Just this time, they look more sharp. They look more like canines or incisors. And then the last one, which is the modern, which is probably one of the most accurate modern block scripts, because it still looks the same. It still looks like that kind of W shape or two front teeth. And that's the sheen. Then we jump down to the kaf. The kaf is meant to be the palm of a hand. So if you look at the pictograph, you can see it literally is supposed to look like the palm of a hand. And then you jump to the paleo, and that's meant to be like the inside of an open hand. It's meant to be the lines. If you open up your hand and you look at your palm, you'll see those lines, and that's what that's meant to denote. And then finally, you've got the modern script, the block script, which is what you will see in most modern Hebrew texts. And this doesn't really look like the palm of a hand, but I guess you could, if it's from the side and you're opening your hand, it could look like a hand opening from the side. But that's meant to be the kaf in the modern script. Finally, it's lamed. And we know what lamed means. Lamed is the shepherd staff. And it's in a lot of words to do with the Messiah, to do with learning, to do with wisdom. That's where you find it. If it's to do with something that's about learning and guidance, then it's important when it has the lamed in it. So literally, just by looking at the pictograph, we can pick up what those literal meanings are meant to be. That's why the pictograph and the literal meanings go hand in hand. You have the two front teeth, the palm of a hand or an open palm, and a shepherd staff, and that gives us shakal or sakal or shakala, however someone pronounces it. But like I would like to say, this is why it's very important to learn the Hebrew, because whether you pronounce it shakal, sakala, the letters stay the same, so the meaning stays the same. It's just about how someone's pronouncing it. So that's why it's important for us to understand what we're saying, not how we're saying it. To know what we're saying, not how we're saying it. Now, so now we're gonna go to like the spiritual meanings. or what those vowels or letters indicate to us, what are they showing us. And you start with the sheen, that can mean spiritually sharp, something to press, something to eat, something, and it can represent the number two, because it's two front teeth. Then you've got the kaf again, the palm of the hand, the open palm, and that spiritually would mean or give us the understanding that the word has something to do with bend, to bend something, to open something, to allow something, or to tame something. And finally, we've got the lamed, the shepherd staff, and that spiritual meaning or understanding would be to teach someone, because as a shepherd, they teach the sheep, they give them guidance. To yoke someone, because you have to be stuck to your authority as a sheep, and Messiah being a shepherd, we have to be yoked with his understanding and wisdom. We're meant to go to him to get to the Father. And then finally, can mean to bind or be under authority, because that's what we do when we come under Messiah, when we come under the Most High Heavenly Father, because we have to be under his authority. We have to be under his authority. What he says goes. So that's what it means, basically, to get the literal and the spiritual meaning of the word shakar. Now, like I said, this word literally means consider, to teach wisely. So whatever you learn, to teach that wisely, and to be prudent, meaning what you're talking about or what you're teaching, you know, and you follow yourself. You follow it yourself. So to give this understanding, consider, and most of these words come from Hebrew roots. So this is the Hebrew root of the word. You can find Greek translations of it, and they might have slightly different meanings, but I like to go back to the Hebrew root of the word, because I feel like that gives the root understanding. And if you're going to learn Hebrew, you don't want to learn Hebrew from Greek translations of it. You want to go back to the original, because like we've mentioned in previous lives, the scripture says in the Apocrypha that things written in another language don't hold the same weight or don't hold the same force in them. But the difference between the two isn't small. It's a big difference between Hebrew and then the translation. So that's why we go back to these root words. And they can seem basic until you start breaking down what the actual things mean. So I've come up with this meaning for consider, to be prudent, and to teach effectively. And it means to eat, because that comes from the two front teeth, to eat wisdom and understanding and allow it to bend your actions. That's where you get the bend from the palm of the hand. And to use the authority that the Most High give us, because he commanded us to go out to the lost sheep first, and then let the world know peace, so that the world can know peace, then teach the world to follow him. So he gave us that authority. He commanded it. The Most High sent Messiah, and Messiah sent apostles. And you're supposed to use that authority, from the authority of the Father, from the authority then of the Son, to teach others to act accordingly also, or act wisely, and to show good success in doing so. Because when you act on what the Most High teaches us, when you consider what he says, then you can act on it. And then when other people see your success in considering him, then they're going to follow suit, because they're going to go, well, when they did this, they got this success. So now I'm going to do it so I can achieve the same success. It's the same thing with having a mentor in this world. They'll call it having a mentor. And what the person will do, they'll consider who they want to be their mentor. And when they see someone has good success and achieves what they want to achieve for themselves, they'll come up under that person as the authority. And then they'll go to them for advice. They'll go to them for counsel. And that's what we have to do with the Most High. We have to consider him as our first point of counsel. And Messiah under him. And that's what considering is about. That's why the scripture says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And we want to serve him, but we have a zeal for him, but not according to knowledge. And he says that my people doth not know, my people doth not consider. So it's important for us to consider. It's important for us to understand, to eat the wisdom, to understand it, to bend our action, to tame ourselves, and to teach Torah and Messiah, and use that authority to teach others to do the same and show a good success. So I hope that gives you some understanding into the words sakal or shakal. And I hope you now when you consider the Most High, to, like Matt said earlier, when he gives you something, not to just sit on it or bury your talent, but to use what you've learned to help others gain good success as well. Because that's what we want. We want to uplift the Akim. We want to uplift the family. So it's not just us that are eating of the treasure. We want to see our brothers in the same position. But first, you've got to do it for yourself, and that's part of considering. You can't start doing it unless you start considering. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to the Akim. I hope you got something from that word, and he might give you some more in depth. Or after that, we'll close out. Salakia. You've muted us.
Salakia, yeah, man. That's a good word, man. It's actually a very good word. So I mean, what I can see from it after looking at it is that it's like you said, to eat first and whatever. So for you to consider something, you have to take it in, right? But it also says that it's sharp, so it might not be nice to eat sometimes. You might not be able to take it as well. So it might be something that is a bit rough to take and stuff like that, but you still got to take it in, right? Also, like, it means to be open as well. So you have to be open to the truth, right? Some people aren't open to it. Some people don't want to hear it, right? And that especially goes into the sharp bit, because you know what? Sometimes you might not want to eat it. You might not want to take it, and that goes into the allow as well. You have to be open to allow it to come in, right? You have to be open to order, so you can be tamed, right? Because there's no use you being wild on the earth, because the Most High can't use somebody that's wild, that doesn't want to do what he says, right? Doesn't want to do what he says. You have to be open to it. So it might be sharp, it might be hard, but you have to take it in, right? And then once you've done that, right, once you've considered this stuff, then you can begin to teach people. So then you got to the shepherd staff. So then you start to teach people, right? You start to have authority. Why? Because you start to understand the words that you're reading. So with that, the Most High will give you authority, right? The Most High will automatically give you authority, and then you can do what he says and gain authority, right, on the earth. Right, and it says to bind as well, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to, because it says, what does it say? Bind up the brokenhearted. Bind up the brokenhearted. That's what we need to be doing, right? When we start to consider, that's what we start to do. We start to consider, hang on a second, we're still in captivity, right? We need to get out of here, right? But in order to get people to get people to understand, is we have to preach the gospel of the kingdom. And preaching the gospel of the kingdom is binding up the hearts of those that are bound, or binding up the brokenhearted, right? And opening the prisons to them that are bound. But how do we do that? We have to start to teach them, right? But it first starts with considering, and that's why when the Most High spoke to Moses, and you read Deuteronomy 30, it says when they bethink themselves, because bethinking yourself is considering. Thinking yourself is considering, it's sitting and thinking, hang on a second, why are we in this situation? Why is it that no matter what we do, we can't get out of it? Why are we the bottom of society? Why are we the first fired and last hired? Like, why is this happening? Like, because there's no reason for it. Like, there's no reason for us to be in this situation. So what is the reason for this thing happening? What is it? What is it? And that's when you start to consider, and you start to think yourself, or think, oh, when the Most High said we shouldn't do that, we do that, and look where we are now. But in order for us to start to consider, we have to plant the seed in the minds of the people. The Most High planted the seed in you somehow, so he might plant the seed in somebody else by you talking, by you opening their mind up, by you doing that. Right? By you doing that. Right? And like the scripture says, it doesn't, because the thing is, like, at the end of the day, like, the scripture tells us that we're meant to go to people, but obviously if they're not listening, and after the second or third admonition, let them go, right? Or not to cast your pearls before swine. So I mean, like, obviously they ain't listening, they ain't listening. Like the saying in the world goes, like you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? You can bring them to food, but you can't make them eat either.
Okay.
You can't do that. So yes, it might be a fact that people can't take it up and stuff like that, but you know, you have to be you still have to do it so that at least they've got the chance to. You set the food in front of them. If they don't eat it, that's up to them. That's up to them. But the Most High has given us the when we consider and stuff like that, and we start to learn and we start to allow the Most High to take over our lives and to tame us and whatsoever, then He'll give us the authority, man, to teach and to bring stuff out there. And He wants us to teach. He wants us to teach the nations, right? That's what He wanted in the beginning. But no, we didn't teach the nations. Instead, we learned off them and learned their foolishness. And now look where we are. So that's just something that I got from it. Basically, just from stuff you said, and just from looking at it and thinking about it as well. So that was a very, very, very good word, right? So let's close out now, right? So we're gonna go through the final 5 scriptures that we always talk about when we talk about the gospel of the kingdom, right? So the first one we're gonna go to is Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 20.
You look at Isaiah chapter 8 and reading from verse 20. To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them.
Right, to the law and to the testimony, to the song of Moses and to the song of the Lamb, to Torah and to Messiah. If you're not speaking about both of these things, right, then there's no light there. Or if you don't believe in both of those things, there's no light there. Why? Because it's like having a torch and no batteries, or a batteries and no torch. You ain't gonna get light from neither of them. You need both of them. Both go hand in hand. Torah spoke of Messiah, Messiah spoke of Torah, right? And they should be a foundation in this walk. One without the other doesn't make sense, right? Without Torah, you ain't got no order. Without Messiah, there's no redemption, right? So for those that are Torah only and don't believe in Messiah, where's your redemption coming from? Right? Where's your redemption coming from? And for those that don't want to believe in Torah, right, and just say that Torah is done away with, where's your order coming from? Those are the questions that you need to answer. Because at the end of the day, right, Torah spoke of Messiah and Messiah spoke of Torah, so both of them go hand in hand, right? Both of them go hand in hand, and they both say or push the same narrative. It's not a different narrative. It's all one testimony. It's all one book, right? It's all one book, and people need to get that, because unless you get it, you're going to think they're 2 separate books, and then you're going to get led into foolishness, thinking that they're 2 separate things, right? So let's go 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 3.
The book of 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and reading from verse 3. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost.
Right, so if our gospel's hid, it's hid to them that are lost. Either those that are lost and don't want to be found, like my Ak likes to say, comfortable in captivity, or there's those that are going to find out at a later date. And some people will need to go through something harsh to get the understanding. The same way Apostle Paul was knocked off a donkey and made blind. He had to go through something supernatural, because Messiah spoke to him supernaturally. He had to go through that supernatural experience for him to get the understanding. And some people are going to have to go through things to get the understanding, and then they're going to get it then. But the Most High knows the time and the season for them to get it, right? So they'll be lost until it's time for them to find the gospel, right? For them to find the truth, right? And some people will find it at a later date. But if you're awake now, your job is to wake people up, right? Your job is to wake people up, because you're awake now. You're awake earlier than those people. So your job is to wake those people up. So that's what, if you're awake, that's what you need to be doing, right? So then let's go to Matthew chapter 24 and reading verse 14.
And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come.
Right, and this gospel of the kingdom is going to be preached everywhere, right, unto all nations, and then the end is going to come. Right, why? Because we've been scattered to the 4 corners of the earth, so the gospel has to be preached everywhere, because we're everywhere, and the gospel is mainly for us. But then it's also to tell the nations to let us go, because the longer they keep us in captivity, is the worse this judgment's going to be. Because the scriptures tells us, right, do unto them or reward them as they rewarded you, right? And double unto her, double for all of her works, right? And that's mainly talking about Babylon. But don't think that any nation that did things to us, things ain't gonna happen to them, because the same things they did to us is gonna happen to them, right? Like the scripture says, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity.
So,
He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. So those things are gonna happen to those people, right? But the longer they keep us is the longer it's gonna be, because they're getting recompense for what they did. Right, but it's also telling them to let us go with reparations and repatriation, and send us back to our land and tell us who we are, because maybe they can find some mercy with the Creator if they did that. But we know they're not going to, because the Most High has already told us that. The Most High already told us what He's going to have to do. He's going to have to bring them to war, right, to destroy them, and that's what's coming, and that's exactly what's coming, right? So let's go to Matthew chapter 26, and we're going to read from verse 6.
Matthew chapter 26, and reading from verse 6. Now when Jesus was in Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much, and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, why trouble ye the woman? For she have wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this, that this woman hath done, be told for a memorial of her. Yeah, can't you mute it again?
So wherever the gospel of the kingdom is preached, right, we're always going to memorialize this woman. Why? Because when the Messiah came, he didn't come speaking his own words. He came speaking the words of the Father that sent him, right? So if you're not listening to the words that Messiah is saying, it's not his words you're not listening to, it's the Father's, right? And the Most High said that whatever words he puts into his mouth that we do not listen to, it's going to be required of us. So we're going to memorialize this woman. Why? Because she comforted him at the time when he was going to go through the tribulation, and he went through the tribulation first. He had his beard ripped out, he was spat on, he was hung on a tree. It's very similar to what happened to us. It's pretty much the same as what happened to us, but he went through it first, and he didn't even sin. And without him doing that, these days would not have been shortened, and we would not have got this second chance, and we would not have got redemption. So this is a small thing that we can do to memorialize this woman and to get the Most High to know that we know that he sent his son, and we know that his son did his will. And we know that his son did the Father's will, right? So basically we know that we're showing that through our actions by memorializing this. Right? So no matter what, wherever we preach the gospel of the kingdom, the memorial of this woman is going to be spoken of, and that's what we're doing today. Right, so we're going to go to the final scripture today, which is Matthew chapter 23 and verse 37 to verse 39. Right, so just finish this out for me, Ak.
And from verse 37 it reads, O Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not? Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord.
Right, so it says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, because whenever the Most High sent, right, prophets to us, we killed them because we didn't like what they were saying. And he says that, when I sent those prophets, I would have gathered you in that time, but you didn't want to be gathered. You obviously didn't gather, because whenever I sent prophets to warn you of the wickedness you were doing, you didn't like it and killed them. And now look, your house is left desolate, right? And the whole house of Israel is desolate, right? And then Messiah says, you know what? I'm going to say this to you now, that you're not going to see me henceforth, till you shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Because at this point in time now, people are starting to wake up to the truth, to the understanding, and to wake up to the fact that Most High did send his son, but he sent them for the children of Israel. Right, and he came in the name of the Most High. Right, his name is literally Yah saves, or meaning Yah saves. So he came to do the work that the Most High sent him to do, right? And the Most High gave him what he needed at that time, and he's going to give him what he needs at this time. But this time he's coming back with power. This time he's going to come up with power, but he's not going to come back until the elect of us are saying, "Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord," until the elect are believing in Messiah. Because when the elect are believing in Messiah, that's when we're going to see him again. Right? That's when we're going to see him again. And we're going to be saying, "Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord." Right? So with that, I'd like to thank you for coming through to today's live. Check out our Facebook page if you haven't, Israelite Apostolic Heritage. Check out our individual pages. I'm Iba Solomon. You got my Ak Yardan Ben Yasharala, and also our elder Thakawa Shalama. You can check out his page too. You can message us on there as well if you want to. That's not a problem. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel already, which you're on now, then please subscribe. Also share the video out there. If you get any articles as well, please share them to us as well so that we can show them as well whenever we do a current events, because you know what, it's always good to get stuff out there. And remember, we might not see things that you see, so it's always good to get information from other people as well. If you ever get a chance to send them over to us, because it'll be good to have more information. It's never a bad thing to have more information. It's never a bad thing. So yeah, just send it over if you get a chance to. Also, click the notification bell on our YouTube page as well, because you will get notifications and when we go live and when we upload videos as well. It just keep you updated on what we're doing, whether we're uploading or whether we've gone live and stuff like that. So it will just help you in that aspect. Did you want to say a closing statement, Ak?
Yeah, just Shalom. Continue to endure. Reiterating what you said earlier about obviously the disclaimer. Nothing we say in our podcast is medical advice. Don't take anything as medical advice or our opinion. We're just out here to bring up articles, to bring up stuff that's already been posted, and not for anyone to take it as gospel or anyone to take it as advice over their own medical professional. You have to go to them for whatever you do. Whenever we follow protocol, whenever we follow the YouTube algorithm, we always tick whether it's for kids, not for kids. So that disclaimer has to be read, understood. Also, anyone who's watching, like Mark will always say, make sure you ding the notification bell. Make sure you're commenting. Make sure you're interacting with us. Mark always says it that you can message us, and we literally mean it. Our inboxes aren't private or locked off. So even if it's just a shallow one and you want to have a conversation about things of the Most High, then do it. All our Facebooks are there. Make sure you're sharing and liking them, because those interactions really boost the algorithm. So the more people who are clicking on them and interacting with us, the more people will see it, and the quicker we can get out of this hellhole. That's mainly it. Make sure you're keeping your head in these scriptures, because time is short. Make sure you stay you're fasting and praying, you're watching and praying, and all praises to the Most High.
Right. So with that, we are going to say Shabbat Shalom. We're going to say Ubati Walama, peace and blessings, and all praises to Yahweh, Hashem, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, Amen and Amen.
Amen.